Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vegan Spirituality Online Gathering. This is an opportunity that we have to join together each month and explore veganism as a spiritual practice. This is part of In Defense of Animals' sustainable activism campaign, offering emotional and spiritual tools for animal activists. And I'm one of the hosts. My name is Lisa Levinson, and I direct the Sustainable Activism campaign. And it's my pleasure to bring this program to you each month where we have that opportunity to join together as a community. And for those of us who want to meet in person, we do have vegan spirituality groups that meet around the country in the United States. And you can find a near you by going to veganspirituality.com. And there's a page that lists all of the groups, and some of them are on Meetup or Facebook. And from there, you can tune in to what's going on locally. And each group does something different each month. They might have a speaker or discuss one of the books by Will Tuttle, or go on an outing together to a sanctuary. And here we are together on this online gathering. And I'm going to now introduce you to my co-host, Judy Carmen. She's the author of Peace to All Beings, and she will introduce our featured speaker for this month.
Hi, everybody. This is Judy Carmen. Yes, I'm excited to introduce our guest, Marion Achoulias, and she is a religion scholar with a focus on animal ethics. She's an animal liberationist and newly ordained member of the Order of Interbeing, established by Zen monk Thich Nhat Hanh. She has just returned from an extended work stay at the vegan monastery Blue Cliff in Upstate New York. She has taught undergraduate courses in ethics, psychology of religion, and women's religiosity at Concordia University in Montreal. At this time, she is busily working to finish up her first article on early Buddhist animal ethics. So that's going to be very interesting to read, I'm sure. She's been active in animal liberation work since the year 2000 and is co-founder of the grassroots organization CARA, if I said it correctly, I hope, which is Kebek Animal Rights Association, and has co-organized the yearly Montreal and Ottawa Marches to close all slaughterhouses since 2014, as well as numerous diverse events to raise awareness of animal exploitation. Her approach is intersectional and has been influenced by her European working class background, queer animal identity, and her experience of immigration. Marion is an introvert, has a monastic aspiration, and enjoys sharing with and learning from fellow activists about the possibilities and practices of mindful activism, engaged spiritual practice, and embodied ethics. She also has the strong intention to never become clinically depressed again. That sounds wonderful and something that I'm sure we're all hoping to hear more about all these things. So welcome, Marion. We're so glad to have you with us. And maybe we could start by having you tell us about how your veganism impacts your spiritual life. How, in your experience, is veganism and spirituality connected?
Hello, everyone. Greetings from Montreal. I'm so glad to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
good.
We can.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay. Well, in my case, I was a vegan first, and then I became interested in religion and religious ethics. On a personal level, on a deeper or fundamental level, it was really the suffering that I experienced in myself and that I witnessed around me, everywhere around me, that brought me to, posing these questions in a religious context. And for me specifically, Buddhism offers practices and quite tools to deal with the suffering and the terror really of the human condition, meaning that we're having this power to make decisions, and yet we're bound to make mistakes. Part of the human condition, the way I see it, the way I experience it, is also this anxiety and restlessness, wanting to make the most of our lives and dealing with our mortality, and also, again, the power we have over other beings and the decisions we are in the position to make of the mortality and the experiences of other beings, other people, and non-human animals as well. So our situation as human beings is so difficult, and I've always struggled with this since I was a kid as an introvert and quite sensitive person. And in the tradition of Thich Nhat Hanh, the tradition of engaged Buddhism and mindfulness practice, really what my approach to all of this is, my hope to bring together body, speech, and mind. What does that mean? Being in my body, being fully aware of what goes on, the pain, the fatigue, the energy, all of this what happens in the body in the moment, and bringing that in alignment with how I express myself as human being in speech, verbally, and the mind, intention, my goals and aspirations, and to really heal the ruptures and the contradictions that I tend to get myself into. For example, I may feel fear, yet deny it, and don't act skillfully and make mistakes based on that. Or, for example, my intention is to do good, yet due to lack of mindfulness and concentration, I may do the opposite and actually cause harm. And I've done this as an activist and as a human being. So my spirituality is really about bringing all these elements together and act more skillfully in daily life. And when I say healing the ruptures, I'm not only talking about myself as a human being, but also my relationships to others, my relationship to reality, what and the consequences of my actions, as well as the relationship with my fellow activists, and also those people that may not agree with what I'm doing. So to really, as Thich Nhat Hanh, our teacher, my teacher, says, to be peace before I actually go out and advocate for peace. And veganism, for me, is this embodied practice and expression of true respect for other beings. And true respect, what this meant for me is really, a game and a life changer, in the sense that I don't cut myself off anymore from the world, from the aliveness and the vibrant nature of everything. Because when I grew up, yes, I always loved animals. Many children do. They're very open to this. But due to the stresses in school and pressures, and I lost that sense of connectedness, I feel, at a very, very young age. And vegan spirituality, allowing to express this love that I've always had for other beings and that respect in my daily practice, has really opened up my sensitivity without having to feel guilty anymore about not being consistent in my values and ethics. So for me, veganism has been a dharma door. So in Buddhism, what this means or refers to is really a door to truth and a door to spiritual teachings. And I could go on and go, but this is really what it means to me, vegan.
Oh, thanks. I love that Dharma door. That's a great thing to contemplate. So tell us more about Thich Nhat Hanh's Order of Interbeing. That must refer to all beings, I'm thinking, and tell us about your stay at the Blue Cliff Vegan Monastery. Have your studies there helped you with your activism, especially the grief that we all experience that you kind of referred to, that comes to us as a result of bearing witness to the suffering of animals? So that's kind of a long question, but...
Well, maybe just a couple of words about the Order of Interbeing that was established in the 1970s. I think this part for me is quite important. The lineage and the heritage of the Order of Interbeing, because it was established in Vietnam during the war. And the Order of Interbeing is really a community that practices mindful, the way Thich Nhat Hanh would put it, social service. So in the 1970s in Vietnam, the Order of Interbeing did these mindfulness practices in the midst of suffering, war, and absolute chaos. And they really combined activism, for example, helping draft resistors to go underground, so taking risks, organizing peace demonstrations, helping victims of war in a sane way and in a way that is mindful of each act, even if this act seems small. Practices such as mindful eating, mindful walking, mindful breathing, and really the Order of Interbeing, the way it has continued until today, is really about community building and nourishing community. And what has really inspired me to join is that in the United States, the Order of Interbeing has been really carried on, continued, and deepened, in my view, by members of the former civil rights movement, so which is very, very, very powerful. And so I'm glad to be a new member of this. Part of our dedication as members of the OI is to keep our close relationship to the monastic members of the tradition. And so part of this is going on retreats. They can be short, or in my case, this year, I spent 5 weeks at the Blue Cliff Monastery in upstate New York. And what was wonderful for me was that I just followed along with the schedule of the monastics, working in the forest, working in the garden, doing kitchen service, all vegan. So I learned quite a bit about Vietnamese vegan cooking, which was lovely. And also, which is an extra, which was so precious to me, being in close proximity to two quite important farmed animal sanctuaries in the state of New York, which is the Catskill Farm Animal Sanctuary and the Woodstock Sanctuary, which is just maybe 45 minutes from the monastery. So quite a few retreatants actually may visit these sanctuaries while on retreat at Blue Cliff, and that's what I did as well. So for me, this was really a combination of all the elements that are important to me in my life. And it helped me to recharge, to realize that I brought quite a few of unhealthy patterns with me to the monastery, meaning fatigue, accumulated tensions in my body that during my stay I could finally let go of. And I realized that while I was healing physically, breathing fresh air, moving a little bit more slowly, that doing that allowed me to bring out, yes, the core of goodness that I share with all beings, all human beings, and animals as well. What do I mean by that? I got in touch with my intention, my good intention to be a good person, like most people that I meet. And I just learned to be, to allow this to happen, to feel a little bit less guilty about the mistakes that I've committed in my life, and to be really in touch with this intention of doing good. And this feels very empowering in the sense that I waste less energy on negative thinking, less energy on, how do I put this? These are big questions, right? And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to think this through again and again. Waste less energy on feeling guilty of things that I didn't do well or opportunities that I missed, and to really focus on what seems to be important, which is to be in touch with what is good in me as a human being, which is trying to express compassion and love for all beings around me, and to not allow negative energies, anxiety, fear, and regret to distract me from what is right in front of me, which is the deer that I may encounter in the forest, or the worm that is lying there in the summer heat on the asphalt that needs my help. It's right there in front of me, right? But to really be in touch with what's there. And Blue Cliff Monastery has been so precious because practices such as silence, the noble silence, that's what it's called, during several periods during the day, allows me to catch myself whenever I feel guilty or regret or ambition that might be a little bit, for example, being perfectionist about something, but not to do good, but in my case, to feel proud in the sense of that I draw my confidence by being proud of, this I great job, as if things weren't impermanent, right? To use a Buddhist term, which is really, it's true. I never really know what the outcome will be of any act that I'm engaging in. So, for example, when I organize a vegan outreach event, the motivation to feel proud or to say to myself, well done, it hasn't served me well, because I will be restless. It will never satisfy me. I will never be happy. There will always be people criticizing this or that about the event. So to really be in touch with the inner core of good intention, which is so important in Buddhism, and to practice skillful means in the sense of letting go of my anxiety and simply trying to go about things in a calm and loving and respectful manner. I think this serves me much better in the sense that I'm right in the moment. I'm in touch with my intention and how I feel. Are there any? I'm not sure to what extent this is clear, or if there are any more specific questions. I'd be open to any more questions. Yeah.
Marion, that was so helpful. I think it spoke to what a lot of us are struggling with, for sure, in the vegan spirituality movement, and bringing our spirituality into our veganism and trying to make those work together. I think we're going to have a Q&A a little bit later, maybe in about 10 minutes or so, but people can post their questions on the chat box if they want to. But I have another question for you. You mentioned that your work is influenced by spirituality, intersectionality, your working class background, queer animal identity and immigration. That is a lot of different influences. And so tell us how those experiences have influenced your activism. That's fascinating.
So intersectionality is a term that we use in academia quite a bit, but and I don't want to get too technical or theoretical, but what seems important to mention is that intersectionality, what it actually means is to explore how oppressions might be different kind of oppressions based on gender, sexual orientation, religious identity, ethnicity, and so on, might be connected. And species definitely is one element that really ties in. So, for example, to consider the fact that a working class person, let's say in Detroit, will be exposed to veganism, if at all, in a very different way, and will practice veganism in a different way than, let's say, a middle class person in a rural area or an urban center. So the context there is very, very different. And in my personal activism, and also the way I teach at university, is I try to really integrate all the identities that seem to make up my daily life, and that help me explain my experiences and the way I experience the fact that sometimes I participate in oppression and that I'm privileged in certain circumstances with regard to animals, quite always actually. And when, for example, I am on the receiving end, and when I, for example, my working class background has taught me quite a bit about what it means. For my father, for example, worked in a factory, which was just gruesome work that he had to do. And he loved animals so much, but he didn't have much choice over what work he could do. And I know that it would have killed him, literally killed him spiritually, if he would have been forced to work in a slaughterhouse. So this awareness I bring in into my social science approach about studying, for example, the experiences of workers in slaughterhouses, the fact that they suffer, the fact that it's not that I don't have any right to judge them because they suffer enough. And they bring the suffering into our communities, into the families, our communities and neighborhoods and our society. And I really would like to make a point that in my activism, I don't judge them, but actually make a call for a society that is not based on oppression, that is not based on sending human beings to so-called work or jobs that involve such suffering and that is so self-destructive, a job that shouldn't exist. Because we have the studies, it's very obvious, slaughterhouse workers increased alcoholism, self-mutilate, extremely unhealthy. So I'm making this point in my own political work. With respect, maybe one element I could mention or emphasize is my queer animal identity. What do I mean by that? That the way I experience society, consumer-driven society, that I am not free to love who I want to love. I'm not free to express my love and respect for whomever I want. So in a homophobic society, I'm discouraged from loving other women I identify as female. And if I love a man or I love my children, I am supposed to express my love in certain ways that align with consumer culture. With respect to animals, that's just a side note. with respect to animals, there I am really unfree with who I am allowed to love or how I express my love. I may be encouraged to go to a breeder and purchase a puppy because this is in line with consumer culture, channels and shapes my relationships to all animals. But I'm certainly discouraged from spending my resources on expressing my respect for farmed animals by, for example, donating my resources to a farmed animal sanctuary, or to rescue a chicken and spend my resources on helping this chicken to heal from the terrible place I rescued this refugee from. Just the language I'm using, right? The terms I'm using in our society. A chicken that I rescued from a factory farm is not a refugee, but is an object that was stolen, right? So my stance as an activist, as someone who identifies as queer, is my work to express my love and respect for other beings exactly the way that my heart tells me to. And if society calls me crazy, and if society calls me or labels me a thief for stealing, participating in the stealing of refugees, to use the proper language, well, then so be it. And it is due to this community that you're creating, you're helping to create, and I'm so grateful for Judy and Lisa that I have the strength to, and everyone who's here and joining us, to have the strength to continue doing this important work. And that also includes my solidarity with other activists that may break the law. I haven't done so yet, but I will and would if I have to and has the opportunity. I'm very open about this because we're living in a time where there's just too much suffering to obey the law in all circumstances. So my solidarity with everyone who has broken the law to help these refugees get out of these horrible places of vivisection laboratories and factory farms. So I work for this freedom to follow my heart and my conscience. So these are a couple of examples of how I work to and practice to heal who I am as a human being as a whole. And the way I try to include this in my academic work as well.
Well, thank you, Marion. That ties all that together so beautifully, and it is all connected, and you explained that so well. I'm wondering also, because a lot of us have been in animal activism events where we are among the few who have a spiritual approach to animal activism and veganism. And I noticed that you have, you're founder of the Marches to Close All Slaughterhouses and real involved in that and other events as well. Have you been able to integrate? I'm sure you have personally integrate your mindful activism into the marches and the other events. But what about the other activists? Have they been open to that?
Now, I operate in a context that is quite Quebec, the province I'm living in. I'm a local of, is very deeply suspicious of any form of spirituality or religion. So I need to be quite careful in my approach. And I'm not saying that my mindful activism is perfect. So I'm really trying to navigate this, because the march to close down all slaughterhouses, we're 500 people at events like this, and it's full of energy. And I consider a march successful if the energy remains, even though we're making quite a bit of noise with the the tum-tums and the chants and the slogans and so on, that this energy is positive and open, and this is the most important, and that we cooperate with the police that is there to protect us, that we are open to passers-by that may have questions for us, and that this energy that we generate as a big group of people is welcoming. So we're using the megaphone, for example, to invite people to join the march that usually ends or concludes in a park where we have vegan food and so on. So this is one way of being, of really taking care that our energy stays positive, welcoming, warm-hearted and open, and not. And I feel that this is key to this practice, that whatever is personal, so for example, being in touch with my intention, necessarily has an effect on how I come across, of how I will be received, and of how open people who may not know about what goes on in slaughterhouses, how open they will be to the message. And so basic practices of coming back to the present moment, these kinds of things, they work. But as I mentioned, I need to be careful because, again, I'm operating in a place that is very suspicious of any kind of spirituality. What I'm trying to really do is to transmit what I learn by doing the practices, by just showing what I do to stay positive, to replenish my energies, to be more forgiving of myself, and also to be more patient when I disagree with others. So it's in a rather indirect way. And then in addition to that, there are individuals that I will speak more directly about the practices. And I have a few examples, I don't know if you're interested, of particular practices that I engage in. But it's certainly not everybody. It's certainly not everybody in my activist community.
Right, yeah. But it sounds like you're a wonderful example for them of being peace and walking in peace and demonstrating that. And so maybe that rubs off on them. It sounds like you're pretty clear in the march that it is to be a peaceful event, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Yeah, a lot of us have the same experience that a lot of activists don't want to hear about spirituality because they think of it as religion, and so many churches and other places where animals are eaten and used and abused and not respected.
Correct.
So I wanted to ask you also, how do you see your monastic aspirations working together with your activism?
Right. That is a difficult one I've been thinking about for quite some time. But now that because often the way we think about monastic life is being in this cloud of bliss, shut off from reality. But the monastics in Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition are really my role models in mindful activism, to an extent that I do not practice full time. I try to be fully aware all day long, but I still engage in too many patterns that I feel monastics, because they really have a very structured approach to everything they do in daily life. They really achieve a level of mindfulness that empowers them to say the right thing in the right moment, to develop the skillful means that I'd like to learn from. Just to mention one Dharma talk. A Dharma talk is a teaching on questions of life, ethics, and practice that given by Brother Promise from Blue Cliff Monastery. Why Vegan? You can find that talk on online on YouTube. So, for example, when you watch this Dharma talk on veganism and compassion for other animals and health, given by a very young monastic, I think you can see how inspiring these monastic activists really are. What they do, so as an example, what he does before his talk is he does a short meditation. He even gives a short introduction on a few exercises of stretching and so on. These monastics are experts on creating conditions that actually enable everyday anxious, agitated, worried lay people to be open to change, to be ready for deep transformation. And this is what I'd like to learn. I'd like to be part of that, creating conditions for transformation. Because how often am I doing vegan outreach in the street? And even though I may be calm, or I try to be as calm as possible, and I can feel fact is, I'm not really getting through to this person. He or she is just so full of worry and just closed for so many reasons, that I feel that for me, the next step really is to join these monastic activists in creating conditions for large-scale transformation that this society so desperately needs. Because I deeply believe that it doesn't matter who you are, if you have the opportunity and the chance to practice mindfulness, the good in you will will be expressed. And you and I will be more skillful, more open, and more compassionate. It's automatic. I don't believe that I haven't met an evil person yet. I really haven't. And this is why I'd like to join my teachers, my monastic teachers, in helping to bring about the deep transformation that I feel is needed.
Oh, that's beautiful, Marion. Thank you. I know that that the monastics I guess they're near LA, had a peace walk, I think just a few days ago, which would be an example of mindful activism. Because I think I read they weren't going to carry signs, but they were going to walk in a way to demonstrate
That's
what
right.
Thich Nhat Hanh has taught.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's an example. Well, is there anything you'd like to add before we open up for questions? I'm betting we have some questions.
Well, I would just like to add that I'd be also very curious about hearing from the participants in what kind of, I haven't mentioned any, but there may be time for that, to talk about particular practices that they engage in, that you engage in practicing mindful activism. So I'd be really curious to hear more.
Okay. So, Lisa, can we open for questions?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
So let's see. I'll let people know how we're going to do that. Again, my name's Lisa. I'm co-hosting this vegan spirituality online gathering with Judy Carmen, you've been hearing her interview Marion Achoulias, she is our guest today. And anyone who'd like to ask a question, if you're part of the live webinar, you can, if you're on the phone with us, you can press *4 to ask a question. And if you're online, you're welcome to unmute yourself, or turn on your webcam and ask us a question. And we also have the chat box if you'd like to type in a question or even an answer. Marion herself asked a question about how do you practice mindful activism. We also have some folks joining us on Facebook Live. And if you're on the In Defense of Animals Facebook page, you're welcome to type a question into the chat box there too. So thanks to everyone for joining us, and feel free to let us know if you have any questions. Let's see here. We have some folks on the phone. Again, you can do pressing *4, or if you're not on the telephone, then any of the other unmuting yourself, sharing your webcam, any of those will work. Just checking our chat boxes.
And I wanted to mention, too, that Marion has offered to do a 5-minute meditation towards the end. So if you can stay on the call, be sure and do that, because it's, I'm sure, going to be wonderful.
Yeah, that sounds good. We're looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see. It looks like we did have a comment on one of the feeds here that says that, okay. What do you feel and think in this way? This was one of the comments. Yes, it was basically saying, what do you think and feel in this way? And I think this person was responding to the last thing that you said, Marion. And let's see, I'm just going to check to see if we have any others in our chat box. We've got double chat boxes here. And one of the questions is, how can one get rid of the anxiety and worry in a non-monastic life?
That's a good question.
Right. There are certain practices that I do to give me more stability, because I deal with anxiety myself. So one is that I really, really enjoy is dedicating certain actions that I do. So I don't know what your anxiety is caused by, because there's so many causes. So I don't know your personal context, but in my case, my anxiety is often connected to my worry about not doing enough, not being a good person, the worry that I'm just not doing the right thing at the right moment. So what I like doing is dedicating each small act that I do. So let's say I sign a petition. So I will consciously sit down, breathe, and dedicate this petition, or this act of signing the petition, to the well-being of the animals. And another example is I may leave a few flyers at the hairdressers or the doctors. I like doing that when I feel more introverted and I'm not really in the mood to talk a lot. What I do is I bring flyers and brochures and I leave them at these kind of places where I know people usually like to read something. And I will dedicate this and say, may the person awaken, may the person benefit from the information, may the person feel compassion, and will the animals benefit? And what this does is, by slowing down the daily activities in this way, for example, also dedicating my vegan meal to my health and the well-being of the animals, is by slowing down in this way, my brain actually gets a chance to take in the good that I'm doing each day, that a lot of people do each day, and they don't even think about it. So by consciously doing this, so for example, another example is wishing other people well. When you say hi, wish that person well. Or you pass by a stranger, you wish that person well. So you slow down and you give your brain a chance to really register that I mean well, I'm trying to do good, and each small act counts. And it also gives me structure that I really, really need. So, and to do positive things repeatedly. So that's one example.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to do that.
Yes, it is a very powerful. It's almost in a way, it is magnifying your efforts because you're adding that component of intention or mindfulness or prayer to your actions. And I think that has the effect of just magnifying its potential effect.
Right.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to give both body and mind, body and brain, time to register, to really take in the good, and register what is good. Because how often do I just jump from one activity to the next without really being in my body? And this is just too fast. And I waste a lot of energy and I deplete my energies. And this makes me anxious too, because anxiety, in my case at least, is often based or comes from that worry that I don't have enough resources to deal with a certain situation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Lisa,
being mindful of energy drains and leaks. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, there was another question that you read. What was that?
One of the questions is a person who joined us was asking, what happened that you started to think in this way, the way that led to the mindful activism, and also to go vegan.
Pain, suffering has, yes. I started my activism, but like many of us, I think, by volunteering in animal shelters. This is where I went vegan as well. And I did in a very unmindful way. I was reacting to the suffering of the animals in a way that depleted my energies. And it was not real active compassion anymore. It was really me absorbing the suffering of my fellow volunteers and activists, absorbing the suffering of the animals, beating myself up for every mistake I made. And I decided at some point, consciously, I have suffered enough. I have enough. And I have also decided, I'm coming from a culture, Christian background. I grew up in Germany, and feeling guilty seemed to purify me at some point when I grew up. Feeling guilty about something made me feel as if I was a good person, or feeling regret over something. These are artificial thoughts and feelings that don't get me anywhere, but I was just so clinging to them that I didn't see that a lot of these thoughts that I identified with, for example, oh, I'm such a good person, I suffer so much, out of pseudo-compassion. It wasn't compassion anymore because I was really just swept away by suffering. For me, compassion is active. It must be active and engaged. It cannot be a passive receiving of suffering from the exterior. That I decided, that's it. I have suffered enough. I let go of any artificial thoughts and feelings that don't serve me. And I decided to learn from spiritual activists, starting to read about Martin Luther King, for example. But then quite quickly, I learned about Thich Nhat Hanh and his activism during the war. and this helped me a lot. I realized that he's an excellent teacher, but really it was suffering that helped me decide. Vegan. This was very intuitive. This was not a very real when because it just when I started working in the animal shelter or volunteering full time at an animal shelter, there were other vegans, and I felt intuitively that they look happy, they look in line with they appear to be in line with their ethics and their values. And I can do that too. So when they asked me, hey, are you interested in learning more about veganism? I just said yes. And I started reading up on it and it felt natural. So it was very intuitive, very intuitive. And at that time, I had never seen an undercover video or clip. I had never been exposed to farmed animal suffering to that extent. I didn't need it. I feel lucky in that regard. So yeah, felt natural to go vegan.
Well, thank you for sharing your responses to both of those questions. I think that was very enlightening for our group. Really appreciate it. And right now, I don't think we have any other questions floating about. So this might be a good time to do our the meditation that you wanted to share with us.
It is an exercise, actually. So it's an exercise. The purpose of it is to release feelings of restlessness, feelings of not doing enough. So I like to do this exercise from time to time to really connect with my intention to do good. So I will close my comfortable to do so as well. So close my eyes now, and I invite you to sit comfortably with your back straight. To facilitate your breathing. And me too, I got quite excited when I engaged with your questions and the topic. So me too, I will calm down now a bit and sit straight and comfortably and breathe. Let's do this for a few moments. Breathing in, I allow a smile to be born on my lips. Breathing out, I can feel peaceful and joyful. Breathing in, I'm aware of my whole body sitting here stable. Breathing out, I am aware I sit here in community. Breathing in, I now allow my mind to open. And breathing out, I now allow my mind to recall moments, situations, and memories where I expressed my love and respect for other animals. I deeply feel love and respect for cats, for dogs, rabbits, horses. I have compassion for chickens, for wild animals, for bats, for ants, for worms. I feel this love and respect. And now I recall moments where I express this love and respect. And let's give ourselves a little bit of time to do that. These small acts of kindness that we have engaged in, we all have engaged in. Let us recall when we, imperfect human beings, shared our resources with other animals to help them. Our love, our time, our material resources. Maybe you spoke kindly to a stray cat when you were small, when you were a child. Maybe you spoke up for a horse that was who was mistreated. Maybe you were able at one time to give a donation, to hand out a flyer, to organize an event, maybe a fundraiser. Maybe you already made some crafts to raise funds and help animals. Maybe you already built a house for bats to help them to find shelter. It doesn't matter. Please know that it is true that nothing is lost. Each kind act, each kind thought that you have had in the past for other beings is not lost. and also to share a kind word and a kind thought with your fellow human beings that we depend on for community, for energy, for friendship. And to know that too is never lost. So if you are ready, you may want to open your eyes. And I'm just so happy to be with you, all of you here together.
Marion, that was so beautiful and so healing. I'm going to watch that again and again on our replay. That was just wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Marion. It was a lovely moment of remembrance and acknowledging.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the people who are part of our group are also grateful. They said that they're glad to be here. They want to thank you, Marion, and also said that you have provided an inspiring and enlightening talk.
Thank you.
Yes. So thanks to everyone who's joined us on our Vegan Spirituality online gathering, and also to those who joined us on our Facebook Live event. To Marion for sharing her presence with us today, and to Judy for co-hosting our Vegan Spirituality online gathering. We do have these events every month. It's the second Thursday of the month, and you're welcome to join us. You can access all of the replays and also register for the event on our events page, which is idausa.org/events. I'll go ahead and type that into our chat box here. And we do hope that you join us.
Somebody has asked Marion about your website. Do you have a website?
Well, it's the website of the March to Close All Slaughterhouses. So there are no spiritual. If this person want to send me an email, that's great, because I could share some of my articles, but I don't have a website that focuses on spirituality. It's really the activists' website, the Kara website. So.
Okay. And they're saying yes, please. The email address.
Great.
So, what email address would you like us to share?
Oh, I could. The one that I shared with you is perfect. This is the one that I use for my activism and.
Okay. Would you mind sharing it out loud so people will have that if they want that for?
Oh, sure. Okay. It's MarionAC .humane HUMANE @gmail.
Type that into our chat box. And for those of you who are on the phone, Marion read it to us out loud, so we really appreciate that. And that's a great way to ask any further questions of Marion. And thank you so very much for joining us today and sharing your heart with us. It was really a delight.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone. And we hope that you'll.
For joining
Thank
us.
you. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Vegan blessings.
Many blessings.